What's up everybody on YouTube, AJ Rose back to discuss another video, and today we're going to be talking about 5 players under the most pressure in this 2023 NFL season. As you can tell from the thumbnail, this video will be quarterback oriented. There's a lot of quarterbacks who are under severe pressure this season, and before I get into the 5 quarterbacks, I also want to mention some honorable mentions. This season will have a plethora of different storylines ranging in different ways. There are some players who could make a huge difference to their teams, providing pressure to either win a championship or end up in a total catastrophic failure. So all that being said, before I get into the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I make videos about sports, lifestyle, and pop culture. I try to post 2 times a week depending on how life is going. But with all that being said, let's get into the video. Alright guys, so before, like I did say, I have a few honorable mentions, and let's go on and get straight into it. I want to talk about Kirk Cousins first and foremost. After watching the quarterback series on Netflix, I for sure have more respect for him in terms of the type of beatings that he takes on the field, getting hit all the time and things of that nature. But at the same time, we do have to talk about it. A lot of people call him mid. He shows up during noon games, but not on primetime TV. So that's one thing about Kirk Cousins. But the other thing about that is he the guy for the Minnesota Vikings? And that was that same question for him when he was in Washington. And then we saw that didn't work out. And in Minnesota, he's been able to put up great stats and things of that nature, but the Vikings haven't had real success. Their brightest spot, and easily their brightest spot, has been Justin Jefferson being arguably the best wide receiver in the game, offensive player of the year last year, and could continue to ascend going into this 2023 season. But the question hinges on Kirk Cousins, and the defense in Minnesota also isn't good, so that doesn't help him as well. Can't do everything, can't play both sides. Football is a team sport, but Kirk Cousins, is he gonna ascend his game even more to be not necessarily a top 10 and 12 quarterback, but a top 5 quarterback? We will see this season. That NFC North is wide open with Aaron Rodgers leaving, and honestly, it's still the Vikings division to lose because they did win the division last year. Kirk Cousins has a lot on the line, and I do believe he's under pressure because if the Vikings lose early in the playoffs, or say this, don't even make the playoffs, and the Lions win the division, or the Packers win the division with Jordan Love, or the Bears even ascend, I feel like Minnesota could be either looking for the replacement in the offseason or drafting a replacement for Kirk Cousins in 2024. Speaking of Jordan Love, I want to get into the next honorable mention. And this might not seem to be fair, of course. Jordan Love was drafted in 2020, has been sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for the past 3 seasons, and this will be his first opportunity to finally start for the Green Bay Packers. So one could make the argument that he shouldn't be on this list, that it's finally his time, his moment, but at the same time, the Green Bay Packers still have a good enough roster to make the playoffs and even win a division, but I think they'll be a wild card. But with that being said, there's a lot of pressure on him. He was drafted to replace Aaron Rodgers. He even got a contract extension worth up to $22.5 million. So there is for sure pressure on Jordan Love to perform and play great in Green Bay. The past 2 franchise quarterbacks for the Green Bay Packers have been Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, so there are always high expectations, even back in the day with Bart Starr. We're going to see this season for sure if Jordan Love is that guy. In the preseason, he has looked solid as well, making solid reads and things of that nature, and like I did say, he's learned behind arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Aaron Rodgers for the past 3 seasons, so one could say that helped him for sure, so only time will tell with that, but Jordan Love definitely has some pressure. Then last but not least, I want to talk about Justin Fields having pressure on him as well. This might as well be an honorable mention for the NFC North quarterbacks except for Jared Goff. But nah, seriously, I think there is a good amount of pressure on Justin Fields, not necessarily to get the Bears into the playoffs, but definitely take a huge step forward individually, having somewhat maybe of a Jalen Hurts type of leap. And not necessarily like getting the Bears, like I said, being the number 1 seed in the NFC, but in terms of having a great individual season, being a Pro Bowler, playing great football, which he was able to ascend himself last season. People had a lot of questions on his accuracy and things of that nature, but he was really able to show his athleticism and his versatility at the quarterback position last year. And I believe that we will see more of that this season, but the Bears' success really hinges on a lot too. They did have the number 1 overall pick, ended up trading that to Carolina as we saw them draft Bryce Young, and they did get DJ Moore in that trade, so you arguably have a number 1 caliber receiver now for Justin Fields, and they're just really building that offensive line, building their defense. Really just hangs the question with how the Bears will do, and I think that Justin Fields will have a great season, but say if he wasn't to have a great season, a lot of people felt like the Bears should have kept that number 1 pick and drafted his replacement after only playing 2 years, which is absurd to me, but I do believe Justin Fields does have a good amount of pressure on him as well to perform this year. Now, finally, let's get into the actual list of 5 players who are actually under the most pressure. And basically, this is going to go from the least amount of pressure to who has definitely the most amount of pressure. I will say this, if you're on this list, you have pressure. Anything could change in this situation, so that's why you're on this list. Even the honorable mentions to an extent, but I believe these 5 above them, before the 3 that I mentioned prior, have way more pressure on them. So starting off at number 5, I will say Lamar Jackson, and this obviously isn't to say that he'll lose his spot or anything like that. if the Ravens don't perform well in the playoffs, because obviously Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. An insane talent, super athletic, just a great quarterback. I would love to have him on my team any day of the week. I think most teams could say that, and he got paid for a reason. The whole contract negotiation earlier this year with him requesting a trade, it was sad to see, but I'm glad they were able to reconcile everything and end up getting Lamar the money that he wanted. But anyways, regardless of that, that's one aspect of why he has pressure on him, because he finally got the bag. It's time for him to go and perform, and I believe that Lamar will. Also, another aspect of him needing to perform and having that pressure on him is he has arguably his best receiving core that he has ever had. The Baltimore Ravens obviously got Odell Beckham Jr. in the offseason, and then they already have Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends in the league. I would say third behind Travis Kelce and George Kittle, but you can make the argument that Mark Andrews is better than George Kittle in my opinion. But in addition to OBJ and Mark Andrews, they also drafted Zay Flowers, and they still have Rashad Bateman. So the Ravens, they have a good amount of receiving talent and skill talent on the offensive end and overall weapons for Lamar Jackson. And then you still have J.K. Dobbins at the running back position. So Lamar necessarily doesn't have that same excuse that he had in prior seasons, that he doesn't have enough talent or weapons around him, because now they have a better roster. They have now Todd Monken, who's now the offensive coordinator after replacing Greg Roman. So there's a lot of good things around Lamar Jackson, and there's pressure for sure. Now, we obviously know that the AFC is stacked. Of course, the head of the snake will always be Patrick Mahomes. He's like Brady right now in terms of dominating the league and the AFC as a whole. But then you have people like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, who's been to a Super Bowl as well, might I add. And Lamar Jackson, he hasn't really had too much playoff success in his career so far in the past 5 seasons that he's been in the league. So in this 6th year, will the Ravens make a deep playoff run and potentially make the Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl? That's been Lamar's goal since he was drafted in 2018. And I believe it can be a reality for sure. The pressure aspect comes from just him being great, him wanting to be great. And the only thing that has limited him is health, because when Lamar plays, the Ravens barely lose. They have a 49-21 record with Lamar Jackson, so he is literally their franchise. So yes, with Lamar Jackson getting his bag this offseason, it may seem ridiculous to even put him in this category, but it's real. The AFC is not slowing down for anyone. It's time. And Lamar Jackson, I feel like he'll have a great season this year, and as long as he stays healthy, that's the main thing and the main component, and he has to play for the Ravens to win it all. Coming in at number 4, we have another quarterback who was in the AFC North in Deshaun Watson. I want to clarify and say that the 2022 season for Deshaun Watson, I would really just put that out of reality, because that season was already finished. He was suspended those games, and he just looked rusty overall, and anyone would be after not playing in almost 2 years of action, missing the whole 2021 NFL season because of the obvious allegations against Deshaun Watson, which we won't go into because this is a purely football video. But regardless of that, there is real pressure on Deshaun Watson. We just talked about Lamar Jackson, who has some pressure on him as well, but a huge reason why Lamar Jackson axed out in March before, of course, getting that contract was that Deshaun Watson got all of that money in March of 2022 after not playing a whole year. And you could make the case that Lamar Jackson felt like that he was more available than Deshaun, more reliable, actually playing, not having any type of allegations like that, but he was still paid a lot. So just Deshaun Watson alone puts pressure on him. But in addition to that, really, if you look at the Cleveland Browns, they have a squad. They have arguably the best running back in the game in Nick Chubb, who was a beast. They have Myles Garrett on the defensive side, Denzel Ward, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, Kevin Stefanski, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. And last season they were 7-10, but we saw a season like 2020 when they actually showed some real potential, even with Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position. That's no shot or disrespect to Baker, but the Browns went 11-5 that year as a wild card and gave the Chiefs problems in the divisional round. So that was some improvement by then. And then in 2021 and last year, they took some steps down. But this season in 2023, it's time for them to put up or shut up. Everyone knows that they're in a tough AFC North with the Steelers, with the Ravens, with the Bengals. I mean, I think that there's going to be 3 teams to make the playoffs in that division this year in 2023. And will the Browns be one of them? For Deshaun Watson, they better be. Before missing the 2021 season, Deshaun Watson was easily one of the best quarterbacks in the league, up there with Patrick Mahomes, as he had almost 5,000 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions, along with a 112.4 passer rating. So yes, he was extremely efficient, easily one of the best in the game, and the Browns, they'll ultimately need that this year in 2023, and there's no reason to not place that type of pressure on him. He's getting paid, compensated that way. The Browns have a solid roster around them. If Deshaun Watson can be great or return to 90% of himself as he was in 2020, things could get scary in Cleveland and for the whole league and the NFL as a whole. But that's a huge if, and Deshaun Watson will need to prove that, and that's why he has a lot of pressure going into the 2023 season, but not more more than this player? It's easy. Dak Prescott has a ton of pressure on him. You can make the argument that he's number one, but the two ahead of him, I think that they have more, and you'll see why later. But Dak, it's on him, man. And I know a lot of people are reacting to last season, him throwing an absurd amount of interceptions, which ultimately cost the Dallas Cowboys in a divisional round game against the San Francisco 49ers. But the reality is that we've known Dak in his career so far to relatively protect the ball and not be turnover prone, but last year it just felt like every game he was good for one. Even against teams that weren't really that good or contenders, you were just waiting on him to throw a pick so you could just go on and get it out the way. But now next year, there's really no room for error. But this year, there's no room for that with Dak needing to perform in 2023. Jalen Hurts in his third season already passed Dak Prescott up, making a Super Bowl. Arguably was the MVP before getting hurt at the end of the regular season. And the Dallas Cowboys have arguably the best defense in the NFL, with that dude in Micah Parsons leading the charge and adding people like Stephon Gilmore, having Trevon Diggs on a new contract extension, and even having players on the offensive end like Tony Pollard, who had a great season last year, adding in Brandon Cooks, still having CeeDee Lamb, who is continuing to get better and being one of the best receivers in the league, and still having Michael Gallup, who's a really good number 3 wide receiver. So Dak really has no excuses in 2023. We will see what happens for sure. No one has repeated in the NFC East as division champion since the 2004 season. So one can make the argument that this is the year for Dallas to win a division, but no one really cares about the regular season performances, and that sucks to say, but it really comes down to what they do in the playoffs. My whole life, born in 2002, I've never seen the Dallas Cowboys do anything significant. Of course, they made the playoffs, made the second round, but they've never been to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. So will that be the year this year? Only time will tell. It just depends on Dak Prescott. If he were to have a close to MVP type season, I believe that the Dallas Cowboys would make the Super Bowl with ease, but that's a huge if, and not really sure if Dak is capable of that. He hasn't proven to be that guy yet, and when you see someone and they show you who they are, you got to believe them, but we will see this year. But Dak Prescott certainly has a lot of pressure on him going into this season. Now, these next two, you can make the argument that they're interchangeable because both of these quarterbacks have a ton of pressure on them. It's hard for me to say this, but at number 2, it's Russell Wilson. And y'all could probably guess who's number 1, but let's focus on Russell right now. Last year in Denver, it was a disaster class. Like, that season sucked. Sean Payton recently said things about Nathaniel Hackett, who is now the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, who was the head coach last year. And it was offensive to many, and that's something you don't say out loud as a head coach in the NFL, but I don't think he was lying. Like, last year, it was so awful watching the Denver Broncos on TV. They had way more national televised games than they should have, and it was just gross to see. Focusing on Russell Wilson specifically though, it was just a bad year for him. We're used to him being efficient, making off-schedule throws, making great plays when there's not a play there, but last season, it was just a whole lot of mid. Yes, a whole lot of mid, not a whole lot of red, a whole lot of mid. He had 16 touchdowns and 11 interceptions in 15 games. It just looked like he struggled to get anything going. Of course, that we know that it was his first season in Denver. We knew there would be some growing pains, but we didn't think that he was going to regress that bad. And I hope that we don't see Russell play that bad again in this upcoming season. It's really hard to tell or predict because of the unknown. Of course, you have one of the best coaches and football minds that we've seen in the NFL, and Sean Payton. So we will see what happens and ensues there. They do have a talented roster still. Of course, having Jerry Jeudy and other playmakers on the offensive end, and their defense is very stout and still solid. But I will continue to say it, the AFC is stacked, and specifically even their division to a sense. Not necessarily too stacked. I feel like 2 teams out of their division in the AFC West will make the playoffs. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Chargers. I mean, I would easily take the Chargers over the Broncos right now still. The Broncos could bounce back for sure, and we'll see what happens, but it's just a lot in the AFC, and there's really no room for error for Russell Wilson or the Denver Broncos in general. If he doesn't play good, it's going to be terrible. He also has a huge contract, paid $250,000 before even doing anything with the Broncos, and just last season was just so awful. He has to bounce back. Like, there's no question that Russell Wilson is under a ton of pressure. Last but not least, we got to talk about that bad man.
He's a bad man.
Stephen A. Smith says, and Aaron Rodgers. And I believe that he is number 1. Regardless of the situation, you can say Russell Wilson has the most pressure, which I could understand the argument, but I still think it's Aaron Rodgers by far in terms of the fact that he forced his way out of Green Bay, which we already knew that he was disgruntled for the past few years, of course, with Jordan Love being drafted, like I talked about earlier. But the Jets, they literally went from being a team on the come up with a great defense to now being in win now mode. I think it's easy to say that Aaron Rodgers will probably be here for the next 2 seasons. And if he has a 2020 type of year like Tom Brady did, then this video will be nothing to really look at. It'll be a great thing for Aaron Rodgers to finally get his second Super Bowl after 13 years, which is a long time. But If he doesn't perform, if the Jets have a terrible year, if they were to miss the playoffs, get knocked out early, there will be a lot of questions there. And there is pressure on him. People say that there's pressure on Robert Saleh as well. I've seen that argument. But at the same time, you have an all-time quarterback now on your squad. And the Packers didn't play that good last year. And maybe Aaron Rodgers had a down year. Actually, not maybe. He definitely did. But he's still, I would say, top 10 caliber quarterback. And he could prove people wrong, even elevating himself even higher. He has won 4 MVPs for a reason. Most recently in 2021. And the season before that in 2020. So we've seen Aaron Rodgers step up to the plate for sure, but we'll see. He turns 40 later this year, which is insane to say. But he's now in New York. In the New York press and the New York media, they don't play around. The Jets haven't won a Super Bowl since 1969, 54 years ago. And now it's time for Aaron Rodgers to try to put another trophy in New York, in Gotham City. And Aaron Rodgers has talked about how that lone trophy has looked lonely. We'll see if he's able to add another one. And he definitely has the pieces to do so. On offense, they just added Dalvin Cook, who's going to significantly help their running game. And then, of course, they have Garrett Wilson. They brought a lot of people over from Green Bay. And Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, and they also picked up McCole Hardman from the Kansas City Chiefs. So Aaron Rodgers definitely has his weapons. And that defense, don't get me started on how good they are. They have Quentin Williams, Sauce Gardner, just a lot of different assets. A great defensive coordinator. So there's really no excuses. I would say the one weak spot that everyone's been seeing on Hard Knocks is their offensive line. But I feel like they'll be able to get things acclimated and gain chemistry with Aaron. So only time will tell. But I think it's not even close. Aaron Rodgers has the most pressure on him to perform this year for the Jets to do something crazy, and it's going to be tough. Like I continue to say, the AFC is stacked. In that division as well, in the AFC East, you have the Bills, you have the Jets, you have the Dolphins, and of course, regardless of the situation, you have the New England Patriots, who will always be a tough out. But anyways, that's why I believe that Aaron Rodgers is for sure the quarterback under the most pressure this season. Let me know what you guys thought of this video. Who do you think are some of the players under the most pressure this year? Of course, this was a quarterback oriented video, but there are also other players that you can make the argument for at different positions who have pressure upon them. Y'all let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know how much you are looking forward to this NFL season. It's been a long wait, but I'm so glad football is here. I always enjoy summer, but it always sucks because of the lack of sports. So I'm just glad that football is almost here. But yeah, guys, let me know if you agree with this list. Make sure to stay tuned for more videos. I appreciate y'all guys always. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SwaggyRuss, and also on TikTok at SwaggyRuss02 for cooking videos, shorts, contents, reels, and things of that nature. More videos are on the way. School is about to start. Senior year though, so almost done with school, thank God. But yeah, guys, more videos on the way, more content on the way, a lot of things to come in the future. Just appreciate your support always and patience with me. So y'all be blessed and y'all have a good one.